Good, good morning, everyone, or good evening, depending on where you're located. Thank you so much for joining our Power BI webinar. My name is Kelly Kay, and I'm a community PM within the Microsoft Business Applications Organization. I'm responsible for the Power BI MVP community, Power Platform user groups, webinars, and other community-related items. Today I have the extreme pleasure of introducing Reed Havens from Havens Consulting. Reed is a Microsoft data platform MVP. You may know him from his YouTube channel. He's just an exceptional human being and very knowledgeable. Reed is going to be teaching us about unlocking new visualizations and features in Power BI. So hi, welcome Reed. How are you this morning?
Doing fantastic. Thanks for having me, Kelly.
Oh, no, thank you. The pleasure is all ours. And, you know, let's just begin. Thanks so much.
Perfect. Yeah, so for everybody on the channel, thanks for joining. Just for a little bit of context before we get into kind of what we'll be talking about or kind of who I am and a bit of background there. I just want to give you the logistics of the webinar. So what we'll be typically doing is I'm going to be going over just a bunch of various topics on kind of cool things you can do in Power BI. During that, you're welcome to go ahead and type in questions into the comments section there. And Kelly will field them to me. So, if there's any technical questions or you need me to repeat something, that will be something that she'll communicate to me. Otherwise, I have natural stopping points between kind of each module, so to speak, where I'll have a short amount of time for questions. Then we'll also have questions there at the end. So that just gives you a little bit of help with knowing how the questions will get passed on to me. And with that said, the actual topic today itself is going to be, as Kelly mentioned, unlocking new visualizations and features in Power BI. And to help you kind of understand what this will be, it's good to maybe give a little bit of background on myself as well. So as Kelly mentioned, I am a Microsoft MVP. I've had that now for about 2 years with the data platform nomination. And I've been doing this work for about 6 years. The nickname that you can see there, the VizWiz, kind of alludes to the topic that I'm presenting on today. Overall, I've found that I've really been good at applying like a lot of visualization wizardry to Power BI reports. Meaning more the fact that there's a lot of really good data models out there. There's a lot of really good reports that are built with great metrics, but they unfortunately have a tendency to fall a bit flat when it comes to the aesthetics and the presentation and the charts. So that's something that I've leaned further and further on the more I've developed in my career, and it's something that's I would say is kind of my selling point, my specialty these days is making reports look good, finding new creative ways to kind of combine stuff to create new things, almost like crafting new elements like an alchemist in some ways within Power BI. And like that's what I'm going to share with you today. Depending on how our timing goes, there'll be about 5 to 8 tips and tricks that I'll be able to showcase for you. Things that I've just found from building reports and just clever uses of a lot of both the native and other stuff in Power BI. So that's a bit of background about me, and just to go into the actual things that we'll be covering. So we'll be going through the majority of these, again, depending on timing. We might not get through all of them, but I've always built in more topics to cover just in case, the pacing changes. But we're going to, start with the left side here, native visualizations and features. So these are all things that without any custom visuals, without adding anything that might be outside of the scope of what's available for your company, these are all things that you can do out of the box with Power BI. So I'm not going to read through every single item there, but this just gives you a sense of some of the cool things that you can build in Power BI that we'll be going over. And then time permitting, you can see over there on the right, we have layered and custom visualizations. So some more advanced things that are often combining new elements, maybe custom visuals from the marketplace store, and other things that get a bit more advanced, but also can add some really cool features into Power BI desktop. So that's going to be our conversations for the next about hour or so. And with that, I'm just going to go ahead and actually exit out of this, switch into it, and just get going on the conversations. All right, so topic number 1 is one that I've actually ended up almost like failing successfully at. So I stumbled across this years back. I've now done a video on it on my YouTube channel. Parker Stevens over at BI Elite also has a great video on this. But it's you might be looking at this visual, and if you're familiar with the line charts in Power BI, you probably are aware that there isn't conditional formatting for the line charts that is natively built in, meaning these little dots that you see everywhere here. These are not things that you can actually add by default into the line chart. There was something that I stumbled across accidentally and discovered that these things were actually available. So let me actually show you what I mean. So if I actually click on this line chart here, come over to the format painter, under data colors, for other visualizations, you'll normally right here have a little option where you can click an ellipses. That takes you to advanced conditional formatting, and that allows you to apply DAX logic or other things to let you apply color logic to that. And in this case, the line chart does not have that yet. I still have these conditionally formatted dots that are covering this, showing me kind of high, low, medium, and high for KPI values in terms of percentiles. So one of those things that I want to show you is actually how I was able to implement this. And the reason this happened is because I originally started with a different visualization and converted it. So if I put this back to, let's say, a clustered column chart, notice that there is conditional formatting set here. That has already been pre-applied in this setting under conditional formatting. And I'm not going to go into the details of like setting this up. It's more of just showing you how to get this to force into a line chart. But you can see I have basic logic for a percent of the 0, 33, 66 rule, red, yellow, and green. So if you actually create a different visual, meaning any of the clustered column charts or stack column charts first, set that logic up in here, and then convert it to a line chart, it keeps it. It changes that color logic into dots that are then placed on the line. So it's one of those things that for a while I thought it was kind of like an accidental oversight where it just got left in there. But I actually did at one point email the product team, and they said it's been implemented by enough people, so they're not going to change it. Whether or not it was originally intended to be there in the first place is a separate story. But it's a nice way to add some additional KPI logic to a line chart without having the necessarily the native feature in here, and not necessarily even realizing you could do it. So it's something that I came across, and I've found it's very useful to share to people that it's kind of like a hidden feature available for this. A couple of the things that I wanted to mention here as well, just along the lines of personally, like the line chart has a lot of customization available. So I just like to call out features that if you're not aware of them, I find them very useful. You might notice that the actual line itself is it does not follow the standard point system like the forecast over here does. That is something that a few years ago they did give you the option to turn on stepped on and off. For an axis that does not have too many points in it, or too many categories in this case, I actually prefer the step. I think it's just a bit more, or it's a bit less intense than the lines. In a perfect world, I'm still hoping for a day where the product feature can come in that actually lets me bevel these a bit and round them out to make them more of a smooth line, but that's not a feature available today. So the stepped, to me, solves a bit of that issue where it's I think it makes it a bit more fluid for the movement. And personal opinion, of course, on this, but I just like the look and feel of this a little bit better. So if you haven't explored that, that is what it does, and I think it definitely adds a nice aesthetic value to it. The one downside, though, is as of today, the forecast does not have an option for stepped. We'll talk about the forecast line in a second. I have talked to the product team, and they've mentioned that that is something that is at least on the queue to add in someday. What the actual timeline for that is, I don't know. But you can't actually align both of them as far as having that same step layout. So that one disadvantage to that if you're using forecasting. Last thing I'll mention, at least as part of the line chart directly, if you have not used the analytics pane yet, it is a really fast and easy way to add additional, again, kind of like KPIs or pattern indicators to your report. The trend line is as simple as basically just clicking the add button, naming it as necessary. There's some formatting in there, but it adds the direction of that your data is taking. So it just helps to guide you a little bit easier. And then, of course, that forecast line down here at the bottom, again, it's a standard forecast algorithm, but that's something that you can add in fairly easily. You pick the ad, you choose the number of data points, and then you can even choose seasonality. I'll actually make that a bit more seasonal. There you go. And it puts in a forecast line and helps to show you predictions for any future trends with your data. But yeah, four things that I really like about the line chart, and kind of a way to supercharge it from just a basic line that's really just showing left to right on a chronological axis. I am going to talk about one other thing here on this before moving on to the next topic. So I'll finish that. I'll leave it open for questions. But the last thing that I want to show here that they just added in July, and it's not directly related to a line chart per se, but it is a really, really nice feature that's available for any native visualization. And that is this little handy guy up here, which is the visual header tooltip. I've just thrown some random text in there just to fill out the body. But what this is doing is this allows you per visual to create a custom text field to describe what's happening with the visual itself. So, information that's maybe describing the metric, or anything that just helps guide the user to understand what exactly is occurring and what they're looking at, so it can dispel maybe any confusion or any ambiguity about the data itself. There technically is a way to add a report tooltip page and visuals, but the downside to that is it doesn't pass any filter context to it. So I've personally not found a need to display like a bar chart or something in here or anything else that like actually shows a chart. Text to me is the primary benefit to this, just to guide those users. But the trick that I've actually done with this, just to give you some context. So you to get the visual header tooltip that you see here, which I've configured, that actually is something that this menu down here, let me zoom in a bit, this does not appear until you first come to the visual header menu, and you have to make sure that this right here gets turned on. So this is off, that other submenu disappears. So it's a little bit hidden. I kind of hope they would make it a bit more visible, maybe in a future iteration, but it's kind of one of those, like, unless you're really hunting for it, you're not going to realize it's here. And the other thing that I want to point out is you might notice that I'm actually using a report page. If I don't, the default is just whatever text you put into here. If I'm just using standard text, and you can see that there is less text available in there. The actual limit for this is 250 characters. So if you actually have a lot of text that you want to describe, or even better, if you have rich text formatting, meaning you want to use bullets, different fonts, you want to bold and italicize, and other stuff like that. The trick that I've done, and I think the reason that it's nice that you can add a report tooltip page is the fact that you can set it here. And all I've done is created a report tooltip page that just has a text box with the same color and everything else. And you can format this as much as you need to. Like I said, if you wanted to bold it, you could bold certain things in there, you could underline. So you can customize this a lot more and create a much more HTML rich type of text box to embed in that other one. Now, the actual walkthrough of creating a report tooltip page is out of scope for this demo. I'm really just showing you the way to get around that 250 character limit. But at the end of this, if you want to know how to build this, I do have a YouTube video that shows you like the actual creation of the report tooltip page itself. So I have some supplemental material for that. But the goal of just being able to have built into that visual header, the ability to see this, I think, has been a really powerful tool. I've had to do other kind of fancy tricks with bookmarks and stuff back in the day to create this effect, and that was so much more development time to create little helper boxes for everything. So this was a great step forward in really helping the users dispel any of that ambiguity around either the data, the visuals, or just what they're generally looking at. Yeah, and that's at least for that first kind of demonstration. It's a few things there. I talked about the line chart and the visual header tooltips. But before I move on to kind of demo number 2, I just want to pause for a minute or so and see if there's anybody that has any questions.
Hi, Reid. We have a few questions, actually. Anonymous question. Hey, the link in the email links to this. Where can I find the details?
I'm not sure I have enough information. So is it the details, and maybe you can help me, Kelly, or maybe just ask them again. But I'm not sure if it's related to the details of the webinar or more details on some of my content. So why don't you ask that, and then I'll follow up again.
I think it's content related, actually. And then so we have email links to the webinar, and then we're recording it. But I think this is content related.
Yeah, so at the end of this, I'll have a bunch of links that will take you to my site, the PowerPoint, and then you corresponding YouTube links as well. So that will be available at the end of this webinar. Okay,
and can we change the shape to something else? That's the next question.
Oh, good question. So that is one thing for the data points here is for conditional formatting, and I do not believe. Let me double check. Yeah, the actual points for this can't be changed to anything else that I've been able to find that's worked for that, because it's again one of those like failed successfully things where I don't think it was intended to be implemented. So they don't have an option to change it to triangle or square or anything else, or change the size either.
Excellent. There's another question. Is the visual header tooltip limited to specific visual types? I don't have any options under the visual header section.
So part of it is you need to make sure that you are updated to the latest version of Power BI Desktop. You do also need to make sure that the new visual header layout is turned on. So I believe that is, because sometimes if you open historical reports, that hasn't, it doesn't change it by default because it doesn't want to, Microsoft doesn't want to force adoption. But yeah, modern visual header, that does need to be set to the report. This does need to be July or later. And if it's both of those, and you have gone into format and you have specifically toggled this first, again, it's you have to turn this on. So that's the big thing. Otherwise, this menu won't appear. Once those three things are done, every native visual in Power BI has the visual header tooltip option. So meaning anything in here. And I can't confirm a slicer because I've never tried that, but any at least graphs or charts, those all have the option for this. Custom visuals are different. That has to be configured by the developer to allow this, as with any Power BI feature. So that's going to be less of a chance that this might be available.
Excellent. We did confirm that it was a content question, just to confirm what we said before. Is it possible to make the appearance of the visual header persistent? Does not need to be hovered over?
It's a good question. It's the first time I've actually been asked that, but I don't believe that it is a possible feature where it's designed to show and disappear. My suggestion for any of these is if there's something that is not a feature, of course, explore the I believe where is the Power BI ideas? It's somewhere up here. There it is. Submit an idea. So that actually takes you to the Power BI ideas forum, and Microsoft monitors that. So I would recommend looking to see if that is an option that's already been suggested by somebody. Vote on it if it is, because highly voted items do eventually get at least reviewed and potentially implemented. And if it's not an idea, you can create a new one, send it to your friends and colleagues, ask them to vote on it, and get some traction on it. But as of today, I've never seen any way where you can have these permanently showing. If that is something you want, there are some custom visuals that are in the marketplace that will allow you to like add a permanent icon kind of in the corner that let you do similar, but then that's more development. But I don't want to get kind of too far down that rabbit hole.
Not a problem. There aren't any questions in the IM window. I'm not sure if anyone would like to chime in.
If people are, I'm going to go ahead and just switch to number 2. That way, and then as necessary, answer those during the next kind of pause session and everything. All right, so thing number 2 that I ended up making is the table heat map. And this is actually something that I came across, this specific one, because about a year or so ago, I started doing some advanced analytics against my site data for my business website. And I saw a heat map by hour of day and day of week on the Google Analytics homepage. And like, oh, that's a really cool use of a table. So I wanted to see how I could make this or recreate this in Power BI. There is actually a table heat map you can get from the Custom Visual Store, but my general philosophy and principles are I want to try to see if I can create the visual first using native visuals versus custom. Custom still has a place, but those should be the exception to the rule because they will work well, but native visuals will always work just a little bit better. They'll support drill through. They'll support every feature available to Power BI versus custom that sometimes require more updates. They might sometimes run a bit slower. So I wanted to see, all right, how can I do this with native tables? And I accomplished this using the matrix table in Power BI Desktop and a little bit of clever uses of conditional formatting. So I'll walk you through kind of how to do that. Just here's the table unformatted. And again, I want to have the cells not show the value. I want to show a color distribution so I can find the most important values within this table and getting rid of the data labels themselves. So to start with, I'll select this. I'm going to come over to page views here, navigate to conditional formatting and go to background color. There we are. And I'll just make it easy. Go from light blue, like a nice dark blue. There you go. All right. And the question that I'll ask for you, and this is one of those that I'll just go ahead and throw it into the comment section. But if you actually came over to the format painter, there is no options anywhere in the matrix table to say turn off data labels, meaning there is no configuration that just says I can disable showing all the numbers that are in here. But that is the goal that I want to achieve. I don't want colors, a colored background and the data labels. That's too noisy for me. It's too busy. I want to strip those out. So how do you think I achieve that, knowing that there's no actual option in here to say turn off data labels? There's a way to do it, but it's not quite, it's kind of a clever layering technique. I'll give a couple seconds to see if anybody chimes in on that. It's good too. If nobody figures it out, then that means it's most of you will learn something new from this. All right, well, I'm still going to start navigating over to where I did this if I don't hear anything. But what you can do, and I didn't realize this for the longest time, is you can actually add more than one conditional formatting to any value. So all I have to do, come over to page views and apply the same conditional formatting logic to the font color. Because if the font color and the background color are colored the same, they essentially just disappear into each other. So go to font color, and I have to remember the color. So I think it was this one and it was this one. See if that was, there we go. And they're now basically having the color logic being applied to the background and the font. So it essentially turns off the data label and achieves the same effect. But again, it's kind of one of those, there's no button to do it. And it's, I didn't really think you could add more than one at a time. Just for whatever reason, that just didn't click in my head. And then one day I had the need to try to create this, and I applied both of them and was able to achieve the same effect using a native visual within the matrix table itself, and adding a bit of padding and other stuff just to make these cells a bit bigger. But the effect looks really nice, very clean, and it allows you to see that distribution. Our eyes are immediately noticing that 11 a.m. on Wednesday is typically where I get most of my site traffic, just due to my YouTube releases in this case. But yeah, if you ever need to create a heat map, this is the way to do it. Just a little bit of formatting and clever layering of that conditional formatting. This one's pretty straightforward overall. So I will have a third kind of technique to show after this. But for the heat map, is there any questions?
I think we have some questions on formatting the values according to the same cell background color and just general conditional formatting values. Can we change the font color? Reverse conditional formatting font versus the background, and set the conditional formatting for the text the same as the background. Turning on tooltips, even if you're not pointing to anything. And
well, let's go through one.
Yeah, we've got a few.
yeah. So let's go through the first one. And that might have actually been the answers they were giving, because yes, you can set the background and the font color to the same thing, which I think was the first question that you said, Kelly. So I think that one's already answered. What was the second one?
The second one was, sorry, I'm just scrolling. Conditionally format the values, change the font color, which I think we've just done. Reverse conditional formatting font versus the background.
And you could do that too. Essentially, they're both independent of each other, so they can either align in their logic, or you can do the reverse. So it's really just any custom logic you want to apply to the colors, you have the option of doing that in here. So it just depends on the direction you want to do it. If I wanted to reverse this, I could, in theory, switch that here and then do the light color. I'm actually curious what that would even look like. Kind of be an interesting effect from that one. But yeah, you have full customization over the color logic between the two and combining them.
And that also applies to conditionally formatting the values, yes?
Yeah, so this is the value here. Like, the only thing you can apply conditional formatting to is any measure in the values section of the table or matrix.
Excellent. And then turning on tooltips, even if you're not pointing to anything, is one of the comments that one of the listeners provided.
Oh yeah, so that was, I think, the same question from the from the last example, is like, can you have that little like tooltip icon showing up here even if you are not hovering over it? And like, it's for today, I do not believe there is any way to do that in Power BI. I've never attempted it, but I know the location of essentially every button in this tool, considering I breathe it about 8 hours a day, and I've never seen any option to like sticky the visual header buttons unless you hover over them.
Great. And then can you also make the text font transparent to hide the text on the heat map visual?
I think that might have been asked before I actually,
yeah,
exactly. So the text is now invisible. So yeah, like there's no setting on the text itself to go into here and change that. Like you can't actually go into values, and because I think what they're asking is, can you set it to a transparent color? I've never been able to put a transparent color into here. It actually has to be like white or blue or anything else. So the way to do that is the second conditional formatting. And there's no performance impact that I've seen. Like conditional formatting is a very, very, very quick application in here that only takes like a few milliseconds.
excellent. We do have a question. If we have multiple measures on the value section, is there a way to apply the conditional formatting for everyone at the same time without applying it individually for each measure?
That's a great question. Yeah, there's no bulk action for conditional formatting. So if I have 8 measures in here, I do need to apply the conditional formatting to each one. There is a workaround actually to this. So in theory, let me just give you an example, because it's actually a great segue into a video that I do. So you wouldn't want to have to go to 8 measures, create a whole set of rules like this over and over and over again. But what you can do to kind of at least help alleviate some of this pain is you can actually say format by field value. So if you actually have essentially this logic already set up in a DAX measure, you can actually create a single measure that has the logic of if this, then this color, if this, then this hex code color. And that can be created in a DAX measure. And then so you can come up to the visual, say field value, pick that measure that is in your model that has all the rule logic and hex colors already set up in it. And then that can just be done 8 times, but at a significantly faster pace than trying to set it up with 8 rules on 8 visuals over and over again. I do have a YouTube video on this. So like, and I don't have a link in front of me at the moment because I have like 50 or so videos. But if you do format by field value, Havens Consulting, that should take you to a Google link that will take you to a YouTube video that walks you through exactly how to do that.
Awesome. Someone asked, can we please show the heat map again? And then also, here we go. Can we highlight the weekend with a different color?
Oh, with these two? In theory, yes, you could. I think that would go back to the field value, where you could do custom color formatting and set up advanced logic. It wouldn't be a 5-second process right now, but there is certainly a way to set it up where you can detect like what the row or column context is. In this case, Saturday and Sunday, and then you could have these maybe be hues of purple. The problem with that is like with a heat map, it's going to start getting a little complicated if you do that. But you can certainly set custom colors depending on the row that it's on or the column that it's on in a matrix table.
Okay. Do you think it's possible to use a date function to create a measure and then use that to identify the weekends?
It wouldn't. Yeah, I don't want to get too far into like writing the DAX measure
Okay.
for this demo, but you shouldn't need to use a date function or not. You just need to identify the name of the column, and there's multiple ways to do that with functions in DAX. And then from there, it's like an if or a switch statement that just checks to see what's the column context. If the name is Saturday and it's identifying that, provide this hex color, otherwise provide another hex color. So totally possible, but that's in an entire kind of separate conversation to be able to hash that out.
Great. Can we also click in the link in the title header in the email to find the details?
I'm not sure I'm following on that one about an email.
Can you please clarify? And then also, how would you add a filter, as we're waiting for that clarification, how would we add a filter to the heat map?
I mean, that's just if you're just putting a slicer on the page, if you needed to have a slicer here, and or just adding any filters into the filters pane. It's just a standard visual on the page. So just with any completed report, add a slicer or add a filters pane filter. So and that will filter it just like any other normal visual.
Okay, awesome. I do not think we have an update on the clarification, and then we're good to go on questions.
Okay. Yeah. And if there are any updates, I'll just field them again in the next segue. All right. So number 1, number 2, and number 3. There you go. All right. This one actually is one that I just did an updated video on. So what we have in front of us is a very common request that I've had from end users on how to build a stacked combo chart like this, but with a grand total on the top. It's not something that is natively available. Again, there's no button that says show grand total, but the the achievement that we have is you can see all of these here. Then I want to walk you through how I actually got that within this visual itself. So here's a standard stacked column chart. You can see over here under the visualizations pane, it is a stacked column chart that's set to that. However, and some of you are probably aware, if I turn on data labels, it turns on the data labels for the subtotals. There is no option under data labels to say, turn on grand total data label, or anything of that nature. There's no way to get that grand total at the top like we've seen as an effect on this one. So the question is, how do we actually achieve this? So let me go ahead and show you, kind of like a little trick. And again, I used to have a different way to do that where I cleverly layered two visuals on top of each other. But then I actually found from another user that there's a clever way to do this in a single visualization. So to achieve this effect, I'm going to take this, I'm going to come over to the visualizations pane, and I'm going to convert this to a line and stacked column chart. Convert it. Not much has changed because it's still a stacked column chart. I haven't added anything to the line values. So what I'm going to do now is come over here, go ahead and add page views to the line values. There we go. So you can probably start to see the effect that I'm going to try to get here. We have a line that's showing up, but a little bit of formatting and a few other things will help us solve this. So I'm going to turn on data labels. There we go. And if we come down here, what we want to do is go to customize series and turn that on. And the reason I want to turn this on is that, actually full screen this. Notice that if I go into the full screen mode with this visual, it's actually turning on all of the data labels for everything, including the subtotals and all that. So that's very noisy, very messy, not what I want to achieve. So I only want the data label at all times, either in focus mode or on the regular screen, just to show it for the line value here. So you actually need to go into customize series, and it'd be kind of nice if I could do a select all to turn off a bunch of stuff. In this case, I need to go, for the days of the week, which is what's broken out here. I need to turn it off. I'm basically turning it off for all of these except for the page views there at the very bottom. Thursday, turn off. Friday, turn off. Almost there. Saturday, disable, and Sunday, disable. There we go. So now, focus mode, keeping it just on the line chart, starting to look a little bit better. And I want to also format the page views a little bit more. So page views, what we want to do is say position. We want it to be above at all times. Getting closer now. Now it's actually showing at the top. So there we go. We also I personally don't really need to show the background, so I'm going to turn that off. Starting to look a bit better. There we go. If I come up here, keep going. Now, what I can do is close the data label section. I can go into shapes, and I can actually take the stroke width, and if I drop it down to 0, and that's the one. This was the trick that I didn't actually realize, is I never thought you could just make an invisible line, but yeah, you can actually drop it all the way down to 0. That removes the line completely. That is giving us a grand total at the top. And the one thing that you can take or leave, this is the one you can actually do a marker, and you can customize the marker shape. That's not something you can do on the line chart, but you can do that here if you'd like. The reason that this can sometimes be useful is there's no way to get rid of the legend down here. Like, you have to show this dot and then a word here. I'm going to rename that in a second, but one way to maybe help show the connection between this and the dots is, if you need to make that association, purple dot, purple color here. So it indicates the two of those. So I would say that one excuse to keeping the dots up there if you wanted to. So I'm going to keep it in there. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. There, or I guess that's the smallest it can go. Then I'm going to come over here, and I'm actually going to rename line values to grand total. There we go. So grand total is purple. It's reflected up here with the purple dot and those labels. So we're getting now a grand total on the visualization itself. So really nice way to achieve that. It's built into a single visualization. And again, it's one of those, like, it's technically available, but it's kind of a bit of a convoluted path to get there. But it's works absolutely fine and accomplishes the honestly very common business need that I have from a lot of customers that want a grand total on the top of their stack column chart.
Hi, Reid. We've had some feedback that we can't see anything on the screen. I think it's frozen for about a minute. If that was the case, then that's okay. Otherwise, would you mind going through that?
Sure. Is it working again?
I'm sorry?
is it working currently? Like I'm wiggling around
Yeah,
my chart.
Yes, there it is.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Just go back a few steps.
And then we do have a question about, is there a way to apply the conditional formatting on a subtotal line of the table matrix? And I'm sure people don't want to see my face in the bottom right-hand corner as well. Thank you.
Yeah, can you repeat the, let me go through this and then I'll answer the other one because I think that was about the previous previous thing. So yeah, so I essentially, just to kind of do more of a quick recap, I converted it from a stack column chart like this. I converted it to a line chart, and kind of the tricks is you take page views, put it in line values, and as long as you do a bit of formatting in the data labels section, make sure that you customize the series. Turn off the data labels for everything except for that page views line value. Yep. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And again, this is actually a video that I just did the other week as an update. So this is also available on my YouTube channel for this one. There we go. Yeah. So the only thing left is page views. We will go ahead and set the position to above. That way it's on top. Turn off that background. There we are. And I won't do the dots again, but what I'll do just to finish it up, and then turn off the shape here. Turn that stroke width to 0, which makes it invisible and gives you that data label at the top. And the only other thing you can do is, dealer's choice. Showing that marker does at least have the color association with the label down here. So it can be nice to have that turned on, and then just rename your line value to grand total, which is the effect it's achieving. So now you have grand total display here and the dot indicating the grand total above that. But the line is really the biggest thing. As long as you use that combo chart, that will let you achieve this with a single visualization. That works very well. And then you said there was a question related to, can you repeat the one about the heat map?
Yeah, it was, let's see, can we,
I think it was can you apply conditional formatting to subtotals?
There we are. Is there a way to apply conditional formatting on the subtotal line of the table matrix?
Yeah, that is not something that is available in Power BI. So the conditional formatting automatically applies to the lowest level showing. So if you have three levels of your hierarchy, then you're drilled down to the lowest level. As long as at least one area or one category is expanded down to the level below, it will not show it on any subtotals. And that's because it does not want to apply unfair comparisons of a conditionally formatting a value with a bar, a font color, or a background color against a larger or less granular subtotal. So it will only show at the lowest level at any time, and it automatically switches between those as you drill in and drill out of the chart or the table. But I have found no way with the native matrix table to override that. It's impossible from the default perspective.
Okay, awesome. And then I think we already did the adding a visual tooltip on the current visual.
Yep.
Okay, and then can we make the radial bar charts or sand key diagrams in Power BI?
That's something a little out of scope.
Okay, we lost audio. Sorry, go ahead.
One quick second, headset turned off, so I'll turn it back on.
Thank you.
There we go. Yeah, my headset's an auto shut off setting at like 40 minutes. So yeah, so I would say that you're welcome to email me. The email will be provided at the end of it. That's a little outside of the scope of like the demos that I'm doing. So I'll take that question offline.
Great. And is it possible to sort the bar chart by increasing the value of the legend? By increasing value of legend, highest visible first and lowest on top.
So there is no way to do custom sorting on this with a built-in stack column chart. If you do want to do any sorting, that's you're not going to get a grand total, but the ribbon chart does actually sort it by whatever the highest value is. So it's expand it out. There you go. So you can actually see like the red here is going down and climbing up, and it changes month to month. So it always puts the highest value on the top. So if you do need that custom sorting, the ribbon chart will accomplish that. However, you lose the ability to get a grand total. I've not found a way to do that easily in this visualization, but that will give you that custom sorting option.
Great. How does the data look like, or what does the data look like for the stack graph?
I mean, it's just a pretty flat table of data, like unless you're referring to this, but it's just a custom demo table that I built that just has a few values just to populate this visual for the demonstration purpose. So not too much data in there.
Okay, and is it? I've got that one. All right, we're good to go.
Perfect. 140. All right. Gonna go ahead and this is number 3. Number 4. This is actually a new one that I am actually going to be doing a video of in a few weeks as well on my channel. But this came about from a conversation that I had with some customers who had a card that they wanted to be able to click for a link. So this is with a lot of these things. When I'm given a unique scenario that I need to build out for a client, it often fosters unique applications of the implementation. So I kind of want to walk you through that here. So I have 2 versions of it. I have a single value card, and I also have the kind of the KPI card with a trend line in there that I built. And both of these, I can put them back here, can actually click. So click and navigate to hyperlink. So there's actually an option once this is published, this would click and open up a new tab and navigate you to it. Previously, what they had is a little table at the bottom with a teeny tiny symbol like this, but they wanted the user to be able to click anywhere in here to navigate. So let me kind of walk you through both of these and explain to you how I did it.
Hey, Reed, just quickly, the viewers are seeing a box on the bottom right hand of your screen, which is, yeah, thank you so much.
That was from the Teams. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so to start with, if you're not using them yet, I would recommend highly to use the grouping feature in Power BI. That is, if you right click on a visual, just like in PowerPoint or Word or other tools, you can group objects. This came out a few months ago. It's really helpful when you have layered visuals. And that's what I've actually done here. So let's just start with the single value card. I have 2 items in here. There is an actual total site visits card behind it, and there's a button on top that's a hyperlink button. So I'll walk you through each one. I'm actually going to go ahead and ungroup this so you can kind of observe. There they are. Put those 2 here. And yeah, you can kind of see there is a button up here at the top. Let me zoom in a bit. And there is that card beneath it. So an invisible button that I have set on the top of this in conjunction with just a standard card here at the bottom. What this isn't too much going on there. It is a single value card, as you can see here. And what I've done, because I actually like to use the link symbol just to give users an indication that they can click on it. Again, like the visual header doesn't show up until you hover over it. This tooltip text also doesn't show up until you hover over it. So users might not know this is something you can click on. I think this little hyperlink symbol is very useful to kind of indicate that. So what I've actually done is I've turned on category labels for the card. And instead of having the measure name in here, you can actually copy and paste most unit char symbols or most emoji characters, and Power BI does accept those as text. So like that's all I've done is instead of typing in a word, I just copied this from the internet. I looked up link unit char symbol, pasted it in there, and then that provides the little symbol here built into the box at the bottom. And then this is just a DAX measure where again I've returned a value and a concatenation with the unit char symbol here. I'm not going to go into the measure itself because that's not the goal of this conversation, but it's basically displaying a measure, displaying a title, and a bit of clever use of the category labels option down here. You can see if I actually move this over, that's what's showing that little symbol at the bottom. And the category label just displays whatever your field name is here. So clever way to kind of combine those 2. Put that back, there we go. And then all this is right here, this clear button, that is a button that can be added here. And these buttons can be assigned a bookmark, an action, or a hyperlink. And so I just created a blank bookmark on this page. Let me do that. I'll even just make another one. So blank one. And by default, it does have a border around it, but just create one of those. If I can get that to be the right size. There we go. Just put that on top. And all you need to do is turn off the outline. There you go. The outline's gone. And then under actions, if you turn that on, you have an option for, back button, Q&A bookmark, other options that are available for the buttons, or web URL. And you can type in a manual one, just, anything you would want, like HTTPS. And that will just take you to that standard URL. Some more advanced options that I'll mention, but I won't get into, is the ability to do a DAX web URL. So that actually is a way where you can use some clever DAX logic to have a dynamic URL that maybe changes based on filter context. But the goal being is I can create a button that can be clicked, can be layered directly on top of that. And you can also even provide like custom tooltip text. So you can say, click me. And that will give you custom tooltip text there. So again, further ways to kind of help the user. But that's kind of card version A, to get that full button clickable thing. And even outside of the scope of cards, buttons are a great way to add an invisible click box on any part of your report. So if I needed a clickable area that was this large or this small, I can do the same thing. You basically put this on top and allow people to click it. The downside is you don't want to cover up a visual that has other elements you can select, because those are going to be covered and unavailable. But the reason that I'm doing it with a card here is the fact that the card doesn't have anything to click. There's no drill through, there's no advanced options, so it's fine to layer it because there's nothing to click underneath this button. The other one here though is the KPI card, and that's just the standard card in Power BI. Again, I'm just gonna scoot this up, and you'll notice that actually the link here is not in the card anymore. And the reason for that is this card by default, it has fields for the indicator, meaning what is the value, trend axis, that's what's been available since day one in this card from Microsoft. But there's no category label. There's no option for me to put text here at the bottom. So instead of putting that, there you go, in the actual card underneath, I took the same symbol, I went into the button text for the button, I put it in here, and then you have choice of vertical alignment, center, top, or bottom. Same effect. Going in there has that link symbol, but the button is clear except for that little symbol at the bottom. And then again, they can click it to navigate to their whatever corresponding link they need to. There will be, like I mentioned, a video on this here in 2 to 3 weeks that will walk through both of these. But it's something that just came up recently on a project that I thought was a clever solution to give them that full button clicking link. Any questions on this one?
We do have a question on the previous one, actually. When the legend has over 100 categories, how do you manage and show all of those and show on the legend?
So by default, just to quickly go back to this, so it adds a scroll bar. If you have over 100, it's not going to show all of them. However, I wouldn't recommend like any visual where you're trying to cut each category into 100 different sections. That's going to be like you're going to have 1,000 little slivers or 100 little slivers of data in here, and it's going to be very messy. I would honestly either recommend A, not using the legend, or B, maybe doing a top 10 filter just to show the top 10 or something. But I don't think I've ever built a visual with something on legend that's included that many. Maybe on category, like if you had 100 stores, I'm not going to show 100 stores on legend. I would show 100 stores on the axis, and then you maybe could scroll through each of them. But that seems way too many, at least personally for me, to show on a legend. The chart would be way too busy for that.
Thank you. Is it possible to add custom units, for example, megabits per second?
I mean, with anything, it's just a matter of formatting. So just to show you, like this measure, the formatted one with the little symbol in here is quite literally just a DAX measure that I have concatenated, where I've done a custom format on this. I've added a symbol. So if you need to do MBS, you could do MBS. You can take any value, you can format it as much as you need, and you can add any text or any symbols next to it to create a string that is the displayed value for a card. So with DAX, it's for the most part, it can be customized as much as you need it to.
Okay, and
I will actually, like, while you're pausing, the one thing you can't do that on though is the KPI card. This requires a value because this number is what is going along the axis to give you that line. So you can't actually display the line with a number and then display text on top of it. So that's the reason I don't have the symbol over here, is that's this card is limited to requiring a decimal or a whole number. Where single value card with no additional trend line, that can just be this is text, and text can be formatted as much as you need.
how did you get a line graph on the marks card?
Yeah, so like that was the one I was mentioning here, which is the difference between the single value card here and the KPI. This KPI card is one of the ones that came out of the box back when they shipped Power BI Desktop. And this, in addition to the value that you want to show, has a trend axis. So notice if I get rid of this, it gets rid of that. So the trend axis is the thing that you see in the background. It's taking your data and then basically creating a filled line chart with a data point for each of the months and years that I have. So that's what's showing in the background there.
I think I want to know the format of the data so that I can apply to our database. In other words, if I want to show a stat graph, how should the data be formatted?
That might be something that I think I'll take that one offline. Like again, I'll have my email available at the end. Send me that question because I need to ask some more information to be able to answer it, and I don't want to take too much time on it just to figure out the answer that I can give you. So let's chat about that offline.
Great. Isn't it possible to add the? We've got that. Okay, I think we're good.
Okay, I think I have enough time just for one more. Then go ahead and switch to. Actually, let's see. Where are we at? Yeah, I'll get through this one, I think, or at least most of it. So the thing that I want to mention in here is something called distribution bins that are available, or bins that are available in Power BI Desktop. It's essentially creating a histogram chart for you. In this case, what I can do is I can actually, just enlarge this a bit, I have on my axis a bin that I've created, or a histogram chart that is letting me see distribution of cost by a few different metrics. But like overall, if we're looking at all the colleges in the US, most of the tuition falls around a few $1,000s. Granted, that's because we have a ton of community colleges, associate's degrees, lots of very low cost colleges versus the 20, 30, 40, 50. But it lets me see a distribution of my data and kind of see where the spread is, and where the clustering is happening. That is something that can actually be added to numbers, creating these bin values, which I didn't know for the longest time. I used to only think they were kind of originally created to reassign values for text, but the bin itself is something that I built in right here. If you ever see this symbol, that is a bin column that's been created automatically in Power BI Desktop. And I could probably spend a good 10 minutes or so talking about this, but I do want to cognizant of time and just to be able to cover this plus the end conversations. I'm going to go through this a little bit quickly, but I do have a YouTube video that also talks about these bins in more like a 15-minute conversation. But to create any new column, in this case a bin, on top of a built-in column in Power BI that's been imported, if you right-click on it, you have an option to say New Group. And it pops up the menu here. There we go. And new group, in this case, tuition and state bins, group size bin, which allows me to actually do a couple of configurations, but the rest is all done automatically. So I can set up my bin either one of two ways. And again, this is creating columns that group the values by their range. So in this case, I say I want my bin size to be 934. So if I'm doing count of college tuition, it's going to look for anything at an increment of $0 to $934. 934 to whatever the next increment is, times 2, times 3, times 4, and those become the new groups that I can then do counts and other stuff in to again get that like histogram distribution. So I can manually set the size of my bin. So if I wanted a bin to be 2,000 for each one of those, what it will do is it will go from my min to my max and create the necessary number of bins to be able to fit that range. And if my max and min change, if they shrink or expand, it will automatically create new or less bins every time my model refreshes. Now separately, if I don't care about the size and I care about the number of bins, let's say I only want 50 bins. I'll say 50, it will always return 50 bins and that's it. And it will automatically calculate now the bin size. So the bin size, again, as these two values change as my model refreshes, the bin size will automatically be recalculated. So your only two options really is, do I want to manually set my number of bins, or do I want to manually set my bin size? And that will determine which one will be manual and which one will be automatic. And the end result being is I basically have this here. I'm using that on my axis. If I was to show you this, Yep. The axis is tuition and state bins, and then I'm just counting the number of tuitions. So, how many colleges with the tuition are being counted in this one versus this. And I even actually did a min and max just in the tooltip, so you can kind of see what the actual range is. So this bin here with the largest amount starts at 1,400, ends at 2,900, and then it goes to the next one, starts at 2,992, goes to 45. Standard way like a histogram chart would work. But I find it's a really useful way to just explore the data and help kind of see where clustering of your values is falling within. There are a few other things that I can talk about, but again, I just want to be kind of cognizant of time since we have about 5 minutes left. So any quick questions on this while I also throw up some links and references for everybody.
Is it possible to apply the group feature to DAX measures in addition to the columns?
Great question. It has to be applied to a column because a column has a fixed set of values. Measures are calculated at runtime, and they're not actually stored in the model with any values. So those are things that because they can calculate any value potentially, you cannot apply a bin against those. It has to be a physical column that is in the actual table in your model. Good question though. So while you're answering the questions, let me throw up some links.
Okay.
And I'll keep answering questions and have these up.
Sure. The automatic refresh in Power BI desktop preview isn't working for me after activating it from the setting. What should I do? Great question. I'll respond to that. Let's, if you'd like to respond, if you'd like to reach out to me, I will answer that.
I was going to say, yeah, that's a Microsoft support question, so I'm not sure of that one.
Yeah, exactly.
And I will say, just for the sake of time, if I have time at the very end, I will answer a couple more questions. Otherwise, I'll recommend that if a question hasn't been answered, feel free to email me. But I just want to go over some of the links that are available here right now. So QR code at the left takes you directly to my website. The PDF from this will be available here. That PDF will also include a link to every one of the things that I just went over. That also has a YouTube video. So the last page of this PDF slide deck will have all the corresponding links there. So to get access to that PDF, that's the first link there. All the services that I provide as far as training and development, plus I actually have a files and template store that has quite a few files available to purchase and download, such as like a Google Analytics report, which is actually featured on the Microsoft Store, and a few other ones there. And all of that basically content that's available as services or files. Each webinar or conference that I do, I offer a discount code that works for 30 days and will get you 30% off anything that is available for sale on the website. Last two things at the bottom, YouTube channel, as Kelly mentioned, it's something that I do pretty regularly. Every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Pacific Coast time, I release a video on a lot of the stuff that you just saw today, just general tips and tricks in Power BI and just the Power BI service. So if you are at all interested in learning more about Power BI, it's a great way to keep up to date on a lot of the cool features. And then for questions, you feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. That will also have my email there as well as also my company website. And I try to answer questions as I can. My general rule of thumb is if you have a question that takes 15 minutes or less to answer, when I get time, I'll happily answer it. If you email me a 2-page document on a technical issue, I will politely refer you to potentially some consulting services for that. But I try to help people who are just getting started and have basic questions about maybe features and things that maybe they just don't understand about, like the functionality of Power BI. The only other thing I'll mention here is this is a QR code link. What I do with anybody is anybody who attends my webinar, a presentation, or something at a conference, this will take you to a sign-up form. And if you are either already a subscriber to my site, or you want to sign up, what this will do is enter you into a raffle, and I pick one name from random out of it, in this case for this event, and then that person will get a free 1-hour consulting session with me that you can feel free to ask me questions about reporting, pick my brain on anything related to Power BI, but I'll do a 1-hour Zoom meeting with you. The only thing I ask in return is just politely ask that you sign up for my blog subscription for newsletter and everything else that if you want to in the future, you can cancel at any time.
And with that, we have about 30 seconds left, and we have one more question, and that is, how did we create the last refresh card in the upper left?
Yes, I'll I'll at least give a quick summary of that. All I did is I created a single table in Power Query that basically just grabbed the current date time, and then that every time the model's refreshed, just refreshes to whatever the current date time is, and then that column is just the value shown in the card. If you are more curious about that, again, feel free to reach me on LinkedIn or email. It's a pretty simple formula, but that's how I achieve that. I just have a one column, one row table that just has the date time refresh whenever the model gets refreshed in the service.
Well, that brings us to the close of this exciting webinar. Loved it, learned a lot. Thank you so much to Reed Havens from Havens Consulting, and please join us for our next webinar.
Absolutely, yes. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you. Goodbye.